Sounds right. Sounds right. Soundstripe. Welcome, 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 ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Devontae Colonel, host of the Inspired Challenge podcast. Thank you for joining once again. Joining us today, we have someone who is absolutely a pillar, well-known within the Orlando entrepreneurial community, someone whose reputation precedes him. You'll probably hear about him 5 times before you meet him, and people know him as the savant of networking, someone that if there's an event going on, you can probably count on the fact that you'll see him. So make sure to keep your eyes open if you're looking for the person to connect with. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for one, Caleb Paull.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So, Caleb, please tell the people about your age, marital status, where you work at, what you do for hobbies, and any children.
All right, that's a loaded question. Well, my name is Caleb Paull. I hail from Massachusetts. I've been here in Orlando for 4.5 years and have thoroughly enjoyed my time here and the ability to just build deep-seated community. But a little bit about me. I'm 27 years of age, single. I do not have any kids, although sometimes I feel like I do because I have a very beautiful, precious nephew, 5 years old, that lives with me. So I get a chance to be involved in his life, which is pretty special. And then in terms of other things that feel like kids, which also answers your question about hobbies, I coach club volleyball. I coach a 13U club team. And so those feel like my kids sometimes. And the ability to come alongside them and train them and guide them more so towards the sport, but character development is a big part of that as well. So outside of that, some of my hobbies, we were just talking about it a second ago, is piano playing, singing. I love music. Music has been an absolute just rock in my life over the years and something that I could turn to as an emotional outlet in many, many ways. So not only playing the piano, but singing and using that as a way to express my emotion, whether I was happy or sad or mad. I had the ability to pour that out on a keyboard and with my voice by singing. So that's something that has definitely kept me going. And then just sports. You know, I love sports. I've done sports since I was very, very young. And now with my involvement with coaching and enjoying things like sports games, both on TV and in person, is a much more enjoyable experience with friends or clients or things like that. But I definitely am big, avid sports fan, both watching and playing every opportunity that I get. And then the last question was what I do. You want me to answer that now too?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I do a couple things. First and foremost, I work for a company called Invited Clubs. So Invited is based out of Dallas, Texas. We are in the hospitality business. We are the largest owner and operator of private social clubs and country clubs in the whole nation. We've been in business since the 50s. We employ over 20,000 people, have over 400,000 members worldwide. We have just about 200 clubs, and I am based out of our property downtown Orlando called the Citrus Club, which is a private members-only club that offers events on a regular basis for our members. And I have the honor of hosting some of those events. And my role there is director of membership sales. And so it's really all about new member acquisition and, of course, representing the club and being a face for the club, being an advocate for the club. And I landed that role as a result of being a very active member at this club. Previously, I was one of the youngest members in the club. I was 24 when I joined, and it became an avenue for me of getting more connected to the business scene of Orlando and beginning to develop that community that I was aiming for. And then over the years, they kept their eye on me and said, "We want you to be in this role. Would you consider it?" And I said yes. So I do that. And then outside of that, and of course I mentioned the volleyball, that's kind of a volunteer thing. But the other thing that I do in terms of of work is running my personal company, my personal brand, which is called the VIP Co. And it is a coaching platform geared towards character and career development for young professionals, early career professionals, and really anybody who is looking to take their networking skills, their social intelligence, their emotional intelligence, and self-awareness to the next level. And so I do that by way of individual mentorship programs, and then I do workshops and masterminds throughout the year. And that brings a wide audience of people that are looking for different ways to build their brand, amplify their brand online and in person. And then I coach people through all of the many, many strategies of building a strong and an effective network. So that's a little bit about what I do.
Love it. Love it.
Sorry, that was long-winded, guys. Appreciate you bearing with me for that.
It's as expected. There would be a lot that fills it out because you are a man that keeps busy. You're not someone waiting for opportunities. You're out there getting them, or you're getting involved in some way. And so it makes sense that there would be so many facets to you to explain in full capacity. So thank you for laying all of that out for everyone there.
Of course.
So I want to go ahead and jump into setting you up as a character from the base part of it. Can you tell us what it was like for you growing up as a child, your most annoying traits as a kid, how you got on your parents' nerves?
Oh man, my most annoying trait? Probably that I was stubborn and hard-headed, and that the times when I was forced to do school, I wasn't a big fan. But I don't know. I'd have to ask my parents that question. Like, Mom and Dad, what was the most annoying thing about me as a little kid? I was definitely very active as a kid. Again, I got involved in sports and music by the age of 7. So that definitely kept my parents busy with that. I will say a little bit later in life, as still a kid, I became a very stressful source for my mom because I did so many sports and I was a daredevil. So I was always scaring my mom because I was constantly getting hurt. So I would fall off my bikes and scuff my knees and rip open my shins from my bikes and accidents and falls. So that's got to be the most annoying trait.
Were you finding yourself trying to pop wheelies a lot of the times?
No, more than that. Bigger stunts than that. But that kind of stuff.
Like
sure.
We're talking like jumping ramps and things like that.
So I loved mountain bikes, and then a little later in life, I got into BMX bikes. And that became a big passion point of mine. So that was something that stressed my mom out and would have definitely been an annoyance. But when I was younger than that, I don't know. I would have to ask them. But life for me growing up, I mean, I had 6 siblings. I grew up in a homeschool family, so that's something that's a little bit unique, especially having 6 siblings, 4 sisters, 2 that are older, 2 that are younger, and then 2 additional brothers that are both younger than I am. And so for me, I mean, growing up, I think in the early ages of my life, I grew up in a Christian family, very, very religious household. Lots of this is what you can do, this is what you can't do, very black and white, very legalistic, very judgmental, very, it's like, this is the way. Like, if you don't believe it, then that's just sad and unfortunate. And so I had to kind of slowly break free from that over the years. But my parents separated when I was young, divorced when I was in my teenage years. And at that point, my youngest brother was only a couple of years old. So that created a very interesting dynamic for us growing up. And I mean, we could talk for 2 hours just on that alone. But the reality was, for me growing up, I felt very alone. I felt like nobody understood because we were constantly in the spotlight as the perfect little Christian family that went to church and homeschooled and did the right things. And yet on the back end, behind the scenes, we were everything but that. And there was so much dysfunction and chaos and poor communication, unhealthy relationships. And so as I was younger, I think I had a hard time completely understanding that, as most kids do. and feeling as though I was in a tug of war between both parents, and feeling as though I was walking on eggshells, never really being able to impress either parent or live up to my father's expectations because they were so incredibly high. And as I got older, that became a big kind of mark for me was just performance, because I was raised in spiritual and religious performance. And so this idea of impressing God or earning favor from God, it seemed like an impossible feat, because I could never impress my earthly father. Nothing was ever quite good enough. It felt as though even my best efforts as a young kid and as I got older and into my teen years, that nothing was ever quite good enough for my earthly father. And so how could anything ever be good enough for a perfect God that exists and rules with an iron fist? So that's something that I've been on a continuous journey from, and moving towards the version of God that I've now come to know is quite different than the version that I grew up being exposed to. But that's a little bit about my upbringing.
What is the difference between the God that you were made to understand versus the God that you know now?
The God that I grew up learning about is a God of judgment and condemnation, and a God that you are constantly working towards, like based on works, and like thinking about it through the lens of, I have to do good things and enough of these good things to move closer to God, which could be doing my daily devotions, being in prayer, going to church, like the physical action of going to church, being around other Christian people. And that if you do enough of these good things, as well as not doing certain things, not using bad language, not drinking certain drinks, not eating certain foods, not going to certain places, not watching certain movies, not listening to certain, you get the point. As long as you're not doing those things and you're doing the right things over here, then I had this idea that the more of those you do, then the closer that you can get to God. And then I had to come to learn now that it's backwards. It's not, if I can do enough of the right things, that I'm somehow going to get closer to God, because there's nothing that I could do. There's nothing that you could do to earn favor or approval from God. You already have favor from God. You're already loved by God. You're already approved by God because he made you. So he's proud of you. He's proud of what he made. And I had to learn that through the course of many years, and I'm still learning that to this day, that he's proud of me. He loves me, not because of what I can do for him, but because he made me and he loves me. I had to come to this place in my life where I realized that my worth and my identity and my personal value cannot come from what I do. Because if it comes from what I do, then I will never, ever know if I've done enough. And so I had to really pull back the layers and realize it's not me and my own efforts and my pockets pulling out my best efforts and trying to impress God. It's having a personal relationship with God, allowing him to change my mindset, allowing him to change my heart. And because of what he's accomplished in my life and in my heart, and how he's changed the way that I think, he's changed the way that I live my life. Now everything else is an outward expression towards him, an expression of gratitude, an expression of joy, an expression of, well-pleasing things and living a lifestyle of excellence, not because I have to earn this favor from God, but because I want to, as a way to give back to him for everything that he's done and how he's blessed my life and how he has come in and comforted me when I was alone and been a shelter to me in times of storm, and how he's given me peace and clarity and freedom. And that is just a version of God that I did not know.
You had mentioned before the show, I go through my orientation process, and I told Caleb, I'm like, I'm not really worried about your language, because I've heard him speaking at several different events and whatnot. And he's like, you mean I can't drop F-bombs? I'm like, contextual if you want. But
I was kidding.
Completely kidding. But there was even there was you made it a point to say, hey, I just don't do that naturally as a part of my language. And that doesn't come from you thinking like, oh, I can't say these words. It's just like, oh, I don't do it because at this point I've had X amount of effects to where I just don't really have the desire to do that on a very regular basis.
Yeah, and this is one of those things where I can pretty much guarantee you that some of the listeners may disagree with this or may see it from a different perspective, and I just want to let you know that that is perfectly okay. Please know that. But for me, the language that I use is ultimately a reflection of God. And if I'm saying that I believe in God and I'm desiring to live my life in a manner and model my life in a manner that is pleasing to the Lord, then the things that I say should matter. It's not because, again, I'm trying to measure up to something. This is not about measuring up to something. Mm-hmm. This is about God has called me to a very high standard of excellence, and I desire to align my life as much as I can in the words that I use and the things that I do and the way that I treat people and the way that I build my brand and the way that I build my relationships in a way that's excellent, honorable, trustworthy, all these things, right? And I fall short just like anybody else. But I'm constantly seeking to align my words, my tone, all of these things to make sure that they are modeling after this person that I'm claiming that I have a relationship with, this person that I'm claiming comes and has dwelt within me and having the Holy Spirit. Well, you can't say that and then in the next breath be acting like a fool and just speaking frivolously with no filter. Like that doesn't make sense. So
yeah, absolutely. And that makes a lot of sense for me as well. And I think you talked about representing a certain thing. And like, so for those of you that watch the podcast, sometimes you'll see people come on the show in anything from tattered jeans and self-designed shirts to suits like Caleb here. I tell all of the guests, come as you want to represent yourself, your brand, whatever you do. I'm not here to hold you to a podcast standard. I'm here so that we as men can have conversations and you can represent whatever you want to represent, how you want to. And it just so happens that a number of the gentlemen that I have had from the business world, they typically like to be more dressed up, well-presenting because they see any opportunity at any type of exposure, whether it's 1 or 1,000, as a representation of what they're all about. So for those of you that go out and you're in different environments and whatnot, the way that you do everything from speaking, dressing, treating people, body language, all of these things can contribute to it. So I just appreciated that piece right there. Wanted to expound on it. Some people have asked me like, what's the standard? I'm like, hey man, the standard is whatever you put yourself to. Yeah.
you get to choose how people see you. It's a beautiful, beautiful freedom that we have. You get to choose what people's impression is of you.
Mm-hmm. So as you were coming up in that area of childhood where you had this very, as you said, religious home, but then also that aspect of divorce going on, was there a part of you that was at conflict with that where, because you read the Bible a bit on your own, I'm sure you knew what it said about divorce and whatnot. Did that cause cognitive dissonance for you at all?
I think I was young. I didn't understand it. I certainly didn't agree with it. I remember begging my dad not to move forward with the going to court and bringing the whole situation to court. And I think both of my parents would have claimed that the things that they did, the choices that they made, were all for the kids and out of our best interest, which I am of the mindset that was not the case. It was self-preservation and them looking out for themselves and what was best for them in the moment. Not that it didn't have anything to do with the kids, because I'm sure that it did to some degree. Mm-hmm. But looking back on it now, like, it certainly was not the best thing for the kids. It was the worst possible thing for the kids, because it created more division and more toxicity and more unhealthiness for us as the 7 kids in the situation. So I don't know that I don't know exactly how I processed it at that young age. All I knew is that I didn't agree with it, but more than that is that I just didn't understand it. I just didn't understand how a couple who claimed to love the Lord, claimed to be Christians, we were in the church, could have 7 kids together and then just give up on love, give up on marriage, give up on that commitment to not only one another, but give on that commitment to one another and their kids together. It just didn't make sense to me. As I've gotten older, I've just learned to be okay with the fact that I'm not going to understand everything in life, and that's okay. It's everything in life is not meant for me to understand, and that's to a certain measure, I have to learn to let go of certain things like that, because ultimately it's not going to define my life, or I should say, it doesn't have to define my life and my choices moving forward. I can take it and use it as an opportunity to learn from, as an experience that gave me perspective on people. It gave me different perspectives on pain, people operating out of pain and making decisions out of that place, as opposed to making decisions from a place of security and trust and loyalty and love. So
Juan was telling me when his parents were going through nearly the same thing, that there was his grandmother that would kind of come in. She inserted herself a lot, and she like really pushed both of his parents to certain measures that ended up in reconciliation. In that instance with your parent, do you know if there was like the sagely grandmother that was communicating at all, or was that at an age that was, you maybe wouldn't have seen it?
I am of the mindset that my grandparents contributed to making things worse. And I love them to death. I love them so dearly. But I think that their involvement in this situation didn't help, unfortunately, and created more of an unhealthy dynamic. So unfortunately, no. I think that there was, it's something that, again, we could talk about for hours, and I don't think that it needs to be unpacked here this afternoon. But at the end of the day, there were so many layers to it, and some of those layers I'm still unpacking now and working through. And again, I've had to become okay with that for what it has produced within me, for the character that it's produced within me. And in a weird sort of way, I'm appreciative for that, because it has given me a deeper ability to relate to people, to empathize with people in a way that I certainly wouldn't have been able to had I not gone through some of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Every little piece of something that we have to contend with is something that puts us a step closer towards empathizing with someone, being able to relate in a way that is meaningful to what could be world shattering for some people. Right. And so I think it's amazing that you were able to take that for the wisdom that could come from it and build from that. So coming into your teen years and whatnot, what were some major influences that kind of helped to shape you and that contributed traits to you that you now see reflected in your adult career?
That's a great question. I would certainly say that a couple of my 2 older sisters were certainly great role models for me in the home from an early age. And as I grew up as a teenager, being able to look at my 2 older sisters and their discipline and their consistency and their desire to learn and grow and heal definitely had an impact on me. But as a gentleman by the name of Adam, and he and I spent a lot of time together, and this was the type of relationship where I didn't drive yet. I didn't have a car, so he would come and pick me up at my home, or perhaps I would get dropped off at his home, and we would meet together. He would pick me up, and we would go. He would do his shopping for his family at Walmart, and I would walk around with him and talk as he was doing his shopping, checking off the list of getting all the things for his wife. And we would do breakfast together at the local diner, and we would spend time together in church meetings, or before and after church meetings. And he was the one who really, I credit to being that person in my life who saw something within me that I didn't even see within myself. And some of you have even heard me say that, but it has been true. And I now desire to be that person for other people because he was so incredibly patient with me throughout these years of my life where I was still very much trapped in a lot of these unhealthy mindsets. And he believed in me and he spoke life over me. And as I got a little bit older, he was the one that helped me break free from some of my self-limiting beliefs and some of my beliefs that had a cap on my success, that capped me into and restricted me into thinking that ultimate success was working my way up in the food industry, which is what I started working at the age of 15. I started working in the food industry. And I thought the end goal was working my way up to being a general manager of a restaurant, like a Chipotle or something, because I didn't know anything different. That's what I thought was reaching the top. And he helped me to see that with enough persistence, with enough determination, with enough character and enough attitude, having a positive attitude, that you can work towards whatever you want to work towards. And so to speed forward a little bit after the 15, 16, 17-year-old phase, a couple years later, he encouraged me to get into sales because I was still in the customer service world. I loved working with people. I loved relationship building. And he said, Caleb, everything you love about customer service can be applied to a career in sales where you make good money and you can provide a life for a future family. And to make a long story short, I ended up moving to Orlando specifically to accept a role from him because he moved to Orlando a couple of years before I did. And so he opened up the door, opened up the opportunity for me to come down to Orlando and to kind of start over here. I had spent years before coming here in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Colorado, and before that, Massachusetts. So I bounced around quite a bit and realized that I needed to settle down somewhere. I needed to create some stability and structure in my life. And I chose to make Orlando that place and to accept this role for Adam.
The time that you guys spent together when you guys were first forming the relationship building, you mentioned things like going shopping, checking off the list.
It's real life stuff.
And I'm interested in that because I think sometimes people think like, oh, I need to have like this almost this curriculum of things that I have with people that I take underneath my wing. I need to have like these workshop type sessions. Could you kind of go through, you named a few of them, but could you kind of expound on that list of just very basic, like genuine life things that he had you as a part of?
Yeah, we definitely have spent times because now he's been an active mentor and business coach and life coach for about a decade worth of time at this point in my life. There's definitely been times where we've worked through a book or we've worked through something, but more often than not, we utilize our time together, which literally a couple years ago, I mean, this is not just back when I was a kid and I couldn't drive and I would go shopping with him. Not that long ago, I would drive out to Target because he would be doing his shopping after work. And that's the time that he had. He's a very busy guy. He's a businessman. He's a family man. The time that he had available was his an hour-long shopping trip to Target. And so he would invite me to be a part of that with him to spend some quality time. So we continued on with that trend. Like he was not always available to go out for a 2-hour lunch. And I took the opportunities that I had to spend time with him. And sometimes that was like when I worked for him, when I first moved here, that would mean me coming down at the end of the night when I'm done with my duties and I come down and sit as he's finishing up the end of the day reports and doing his boss duties, that I had the opportunity to pick his brain a little bit and chat and catch up or just to laugh. That's something that I think is an underrated thing when it comes to spending time with mentors or people that are just older and wiser and more experienced than you, is having fun together and learning to laugh together. That it doesn't always have to be sitting down face to face and singing Kumbaya together and it being this deep psychological, spiritual conversation every single time. Sometimes it's just, man, like, let's go out and have a good time. Let's go out, drink a soda water on the deck and look at the lake and just chat. Sometimes it was opening up. A lot of times it would be opening up my notepad, talking about goals, where I was, where I was currently at versus where I wanted to go, and being able to really break down and reverse engineer. Okay, if you're saying that this is where you want to be in a year, 5 years, 10 years, what are the things that you have to be doing today and tomorrow and next quarter and in the end of the year to put yourself in a position to reach those goals? That's something that I never had guidance on from parents or uncles or grandparents. I had that guidance from this mentor. And I think a lot of people fail to recognize that that's so important for your own self-awareness, to be able to bounce off ideas and thoughts and passions and gain insight from somebody else who knows you well and who sees you in different capacities. They might see you in a family realm. They might see you in a business realm. They might see you in an educational or more of an academic realm, and being able to gain those insights from them on, man, like how do you see my strengths? How do you see my weaknesses? Where are the areas where you feel that I excel? And for me, it became in sales. Okay, where are the areas that I excel in sales? Where are my areas of opportunity and areas of growth for sales, for future leadership, communication, whatever it may be? So that's something I would highly encourage anybody listening, that if you do not have somebody in your corner who, number one, first and foremost, is believing in you, then you need to have that. I can't imagine not having that in my life. Number two is somebody who not only believes in you, but somebody who is going to tell you what you need to hear and not always just what you want to hear. Somebody who is willing to hurt your feelings with the truth, and somebody who will refuse to comfort you by telling you lies. And that's something I think a lot of people have a hard time with, because we have a hard time facing reality. We have a hard time facing the truth, especially the truth about ourselves and about our weaknesses, our insecurities, our failures, our fears. But until you look those things in the face and can really address them in a psychologically safe environment of a group of people or with an individual, then you're forever capping your growth and you're stunting your growth, because until you work through those things on a deep emotional level, you're not ever really going to be able to live in a true state of authenticity, because you're refusing to believe certain, I don't know, does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So
the opportunities that you spoke of as far as time, I'm curious how, now knowing how you had your start with him, how have you worked that out also with the kids that you now mentor as far as volleyball and all that? How does that look like as far as your now lineage of people that you pass on to?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say some of it I take into my own relational rhythms and patterns. I would say one of the number one ways that I connect with people, especially people that I'm trying to pour into, is that I'll encourage them to come and hang out with me. Like if I'm going to an event, come with me to the event. I'll introduce you to some people. We can hang out. We can chat. It's an opportunity for you to get out of your comfort zone a little bit and grow, and I can give you some guidance. But I would say that's definitely one thing, as well as just letting them know, hey, if you want something from me, you got to ask for it. Like I don't always have the mental capacity or the mental fortitude to reach out to every single individual that I know and that I work closely with and say, hey, you're on the routine now. I gotta get together with you for an hour. Sometimes it's that way, and sometimes it's, hey, I'm gonna be this weekend. I'm hanging out playing spike ball with some friends, or I'm playing volleyball, or I'm doing this. I'm going here. I'm gonna be here. We're going to Disney Springs. You want to come? You want to hang out with us? You want to be part of the group? And then on top of that is inviting them to events where I know I'm gonna be at, or events that I'm hosting, because it's a perfect opportunity for them to really continue getting to know me in a deeper way. But it's also a way that they can learn with me, learn from me, and where I can also hopefully try to introduce them to some new people and help them to expand their circle, which is always something that I work towards. I don't know if that answers your question.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And it's cool to see that lineage kind of working through and just like trying to slip it in, because I mean, that's something that I struggle with all the time with some of my students is like, man, I want to hang out with, three of you guys outside of, the church world or whatever. But man, it's just, I don't know what to invite you to, because
a lot,
most of these things are either adult functions or they're things that you probably would be bored at. How do you decide who to give your time to and when to pull from pouring into a person as much as you would another individual you're pouring more into?
All right, folks, this is the $1 million question, so listen up. Now, in all seriousness, there's a couple things that I look for, and I feel like I've gotten even more laser focused and will continue to be more focused on this because my time is limited. Mm-hmm. Everyone's time is limited. Our time is extremely valuable. It's the most important and valuable commodity that we have. It's the most precious and expensive gift that you could give to somebody, because when you give somebody your time, you are indeed giving them something that you can never get back. So when I think about my time and who I give it to, who I give my time and energy to, it is gonna go towards the people who want it the most. And what I mean by that is, if you're telling me one time, hey, I want to spend time with you, Caleb, I want to hang out with you, I want to learn from you, I want to do this, I want to do this, and then I never hear from you again, or I don't hear from you again for 6 months, you didn't really want to hang out with me. You didn't really want to get to know me. You didn't really want to be my friend. You didn't really want to, whatever it was that you stated. No, you didn't really want to do that, because you would have been proactive to find ways to come to my event or to go somewhere where you knew that I would be, or you would text me or call me if you were thinking about me. You would try to find some way to add value to my life, something like there would be some sort of initiative and action that would come into it to show that you actually wanted my time. So that's one thing, is the people who want it and who ask for it. So like there are people in my young adults group, and I tell them this, I will just vocalize it. Say, hey, like if you want to spend time, like just ask, just let me know. Hey, like I have free time this time, or hey, are you free this time? I'd love to spend some time with you. Then great, but you gotta reach out and you just gotta ask me, and you gotta actually follow through with it. Not just say, hey, like let me know if you want to get together sometime. Like let me know if you, like I'm never gonna be at a point where I'm just like, all right, all those hundreds of people that said let me know, today's my day to let everybody know. Like that's not, nobody does that. You know how everyone says? Everyone always says, let me know if you want this, let me know. Like that's ridiculous. I try to avoid that. I try to eliminate that from my vocabulary. Second of all, the second thing who gets my time is the people who I see growing and changing. People that I see staying stagnant and saying the same things over and over and stuck in the same patterns, struggling with the same things, not doing anything about it. That's the key. Not doing anything about it. Then I'm going to have a hard time prioritizing giving that individual time unless I see something within them, like where they're stuck and they genuinely want the help and they're willing to put in the energy, the excitement, the initiative to make changes in their life. That's different. But if it's somebody who is saying out of one side of their mouth that they want to change, they want to grow, they want things to be different, and then 6 months down the road, they still have taken 0 steps toward that.
Right.
Like that's a tough one for me to justify. But I also look at my life and I say, okay, Caleb, there's been times when you've been pretty stubborn and pretty rebellious and hard-headed in certain lessons that took you a very long time to learn. And so be watchful of that, right? Be watchful that I'm not saying that I'm not forgetting where I came from and the journey that I had, and realizing, hey, sometimes people might be stuck in their head, might be stuck in self-doubt, limited beliefs, certain things that they need guidance, accountability, instruction, coaching on, and that the reality of relationships are that they're hard, they're messy, they take time.
That is it's a point that a lot of people struggle with because, you see it all the time, the sunken cost fallacy. People think, man, I've put X amount of time into a person, and to give up something is going to just be detrimental to all parties involved. And having that ability to know when to say, all right, I need to just let this person do a certain amount of work and not constantly be the one that is doing the reaching out, doing the inviting, doing the checking up on. That is something that, I mean, yeah, it can feel, I mean, it can almost feel like giving up on it. And then you start to think about some of these different fallacies, whether it's sunken costs or whether it's time investment and just like what's the ROI on spending some time with someone.
Totally.
So when you go and you are at these volleyball sessions, you're coaching and things like that, what are some of the top values that you're looking to instill into some of these students, and how do you go about growing that in them?
That's a hard question. I'm still trying to figure it out, so I'll get back to you on that. But I would say for me and just for us as a club, our club is actually a Christian club, so we're built on Christian values. We are a club that has small, very, very small, short, impactful little devotions at the end of our practices. We say a little short prayer before our matches when we're in tournaments and things like that. But we put a heavy emphasis on character building, and I build my team primarily on character and attitude above skill level, because I believe that if somebody's coachable and if somebody has a good attitude, then they're going to not only learn and have a lot more fun in the process as I coach them, but they're also going to have a much better impact on the rest of the team, as opposed to somebody who's uncoachable, somebody who's negative, somebody who's irritable, dramatic, whatever the case may be. That perhaps character and attitude is an even bigger, more important area of focus. And so with that, during our practices, we, of course, are refining our skills. We are doing drills. We have our hitting lines. We play we play pickup. We play queen of the court. We do fun things for the girls to keep it fun and exciting, keep it moving. But by all means, we as coaches and the club director is not afraid to pull aside somebody and address harsh words that were spoken to a teammate, or if there was a certain attitude toward a coach, to address it in a very loving and affirmative way, by the way, and make sure that they're good, that they're okay. Make sure that, like, is there anything happening at home that I need to know about, making sure that they're good first and foremost. But then also to try and, I think the biggest thing, to answer your question directly, is to help them come to the conclusion of certain things instead of me just constantly telling them stuff. Like, for example, if you tell everybody when you come in for a timeout, hey, don't talk when I'm talking, or don't dribble the ball while I'm talking, what do you think is going to be more well received? Me just telling them don't do something, or saying, hey, like, do you guys see the importance of when the coach is talking, that it would be important for everybody to be listening? Or, hey, do you think that you would have an easier time or a harder time listening to the coach when the balls are being dribbled around on the floor? Oh, easier. Okay. Then you let them answer it for themselves. You let them come to that conclusion instead of just telling them, don't do this or stop doing this. And it's the same with parenting. I mean, I'm not a parent, but I've been around enough parents and been around enough kids and families, environments. I've lived with multiple different families throughout my life to know that you get a lot better results from guiding and course correcting young people. And my team's 13U, so that we're talking 12 and 13-year-old kids here. Having a better luck instructing them and helping them come to the conclusion that, hey, it's probably not a good idea for me to do that. Or trying to instruct them with the swing of their arm towards the ball. Like, you're a strong volleyball player. You're a strong athlete. You have a lot of strength. And when you swing the ball when you swing your arm this way, or when you do it this way, you're missing out on so much power. Because then that's helping them to see, I believe in them. I believe in their strength and their natural abilities as a player. But I'm also coming alongside to help and coach and refine that process to maximize their ability to do something. And I'm affirming it. I'm not just saying, hey, like, you're doing this wrong, or hey, do it this way instead. Because how is that helping them?
Yeah.
But if I'm helping them to see by doing it this way, by shifting your feet just a little bit this way, or by turning your shoulder this way, you're going to maximize your power because you are so strong. Then that's, do you see the different approach there? It's just different.
Right. It kind of comes back to that same idea of like the difference between growing up in a place where it is do this, don't do this, versus do this in this way because it will increase profitability or gains in this measure. And this is the gain for it. And then if you're going to do it that way, understand that way comes with sacrificing X amount. So you can have the unoptimized version of the pitch, but you're leaving XYZ on the table to maximize something. So I like that approach. I like it, man.
Appreciate it.
I know I've been hitting you with some pretty heavy stuff, so I'm gonna break it up a little bit. We're gonna go into a little bit of zaniness here. No, not that one. No. Anyways.
Couldn't find it.
Yeah. So now I'm gonna ask you some no-brainer stuff here.
Okay.
All right. Caleb, what is your favorite color?
Purple.
Purple. Oh.
Has been my whole life.
Okay. What shade of it?
Like a royal purple, dark purple, not plum, not light, not lavender, like true royal purple. Nice. I don't know how to explain it. It's the one that was in the picture of the shirt that I actually ironically was wearing with this very suit. That color purple. Just a true rich purple.
Favorite car?
My favorite car, I've loved Ford Mustangs, Shelby GTs for a very, very long time. Ever since I was a little kid. I am still of the belief that I will one day own a Mustang GT 5.0
Let's
V8.
go.
So we'll see how that goes. But I would say that would have to be my favorite car just because it's been for so long.
If there were 3 people that were looking to get you something for your nearest upcoming birthday, what would you want them to get you?
What I want
Each
them to
different
get me?
person.
Oh, man. Well, I don't know. I guess it depends on... I'm a big gift guy. Like my love language is quality time and gifts. So with that, gifts could be the simplest, smallest thing, but if done with the right intentions and done, like that could mean so much to me. Whether it was you were traveling and you thought of me and you brought me home something that reminded you of me, or whether it's you thought of me when you were at Starbucks and brought me my favorite caramel frappuccino, like that,
nice.
that would mean the world to me. So I don't know, but if I wanted something nice, I love jewelry. I'm a sucker for like really nice quality stuff. So I'd probably just say jewelry. I love shoes. Anybody who knows me knows that I love shoes. I have an unhealthy collection of both dress shoes and sneakers. And so anything, I always tell people have to ask me about gifts. Anything Nike, it's going to be Nike for the win. And then jewelry. Like I love these. You probably can't pick it up fully on the camera, but these types of beads and just jewelry.
Okay.
One day I'll own a watch, a nice high-end watch, but haven't
shooting for like a
yet.
Rolex or
everybody has that. So I would want
for
something
sure.
a little more unique.
Okay.
But quality made.
Would you go with the G-Shock?
No. Well, I used to have those. For years, I wore G-Shock watches, but something probably a little more luxury. Than
Right.
Yeah.
In high school, I thought G-Shock was like the top of the top. I thought Rolex was the next step up from G-Shock.
G-Shock watches are still pretty dope. Me being into extreme sports and everything, that's like, has a big presence in some of those circles. So definitely a big fan.
How'd you get into that realm of the extreme sports and all that anyway?
I became so fascinated with it when I was younger. I remember watching, motocross and BMX, skateboarding. Some of my friends from New York were into skating, and then they got BMX bikes one summer, and then I wanted to get one, and then I got it and started getting into it that way. But I love snowboarding. I've followed professional snowboarding for quite some time now. So all of those types of things, I've just been fascinated with as long as I can remember.
Man, ripping it up on it.
Yeah.
So you said BMXing, snowboarding, and have you ever done skiing?
No.
No?
I'm a snowboarder, wakeboarder, BMX bikes.
Can you surf as well?
No, I've never tried.
Okay.
I probably could, but I've never tried.
Gotta be the same technique, right?
Some of it. I don't skate, but I love the sport of skateboarding. Some people wouldn't say it's a sport. It is definitely a sport. But I love watching skateboarding. I love watching anything to do with extreme sports.
Yeah, man. They're impressive. They're terrifying and impressive.
Yeah.
So I want to know about some of your most challenging times in life and how you navigated out of those.
Well, I'll tell other than the one that we've already been talking about is with the family situation, the one that is arguably even more difficult than that was 2016. So in 2016, August to be exact, I was driving to church one morning, Sunday morning, and I was going to the early service because I wanted to leave early to go to a big music festival with some of my favorite musical artists. And it was early in the morning. I was driving down a windy country road in Ohio, and I was just tired, and I started to swerve off the road, and then I overcorrected, and it shot me like a slingshot into the air, and I proceeded to roll my car into somebody's soybeans into their field a few times and ruined their crops. And that alone was pretty disheartening, but I ended up with 2 fractures in my neck, fractured sternum right here, and dislocated tailbone, bruised lungs, obviously a pretty major traumatic brain injury. And the months and really years that preceded that moment were challenging on many, many levels, emotionally, mentally, physically. I mean, my life was never the same after that from a physical perspective. And unfortunately, I'd been in multiple other accidents leading up to that point, a bad snowboarding accident. I had been in another freak accident that didn't involve broken bones, but that involved another traumatic brain injury and injuries to my back and neck. So for that to happen, that was the 3rd traumatic brain injury that I had experienced over the course of 4 years. So it was like a very short time. And I mean, to say that was discouraging and deflating, that doesn't even do it justice. I mean, physical pain, it was the worst physical pain that I've ever been in my life, sitting in that hospital bed. But more than that, as an athlete, as somebody who's active, as somebody who wanted to compete in sports at a very high level, that was hard for me. And not only that, but I was a hard worker, right? I had a full-time job, which I couldn't do. I couldn't even drive for 3-4 months after that accident because I was in a neck brace. I wasn't allowed to drive. I wasn't permitted by the doctors to drive. And that was a whole, learning curve for me to have to be driven around everywhere. And for the first, I don't think it was months, but it was definitely several weeks after that car accident. I mean, I couldn't eat on my own. So I had to be fed food. I had to get help getting up and using the restroom. I was banged up. Okay. And it wasn't even as bad as it could have been, right? There are people that have fracture their femur and bones, coming out of their body and much liver damage, brain bleeding. There are so many other things that could have happened in this accident that I believe God spared my life. I mean, this was coming off of one of the better times of my life, which was a year in Colorado. This institution out there in Colorado, and just had an incredible year at the age of 18, where that was the first year that I lived outside of my home, outside of the brokenness and division of my home. So the year in Colorado when I was 18 was one of the better years of my life. And then after I left there, I went to Ohio and I got in this car accident, and I'm just what's going on? My life just tanked and went downhill, and I made some stupid decisions and was in a really tough place for a good year and a half. For a good year and a half, I was in a really bad place. And I would say for another year and a half, I was in a tough place. And it took me some time to in counseling and some therapy to really get back on the path again, and to be clear headed, and to, because like months after that accident, months and months and months after that accident, I mean, there were a lot of times where I didn't want to be alive, right? Like I wasn't necessarily suicidal, but I did not want to be alive. Let me tell you that. I wanted to crawl into a black hole and just kind of disappear from the earth because I had so much pain, physical pain. I had so much emotional shame that I couldn't bear the weight of just continuing on in that path that I was on.
Right.
So it took a lot of doing. It took a lot of grace on from my friends. It took God's grace over my life at fighting with me and alongside me to get me to the place where I could actually to start to think again and feel again and believe again. And I don't know if that makes sense. I hope it makes sense and touches somebody out there. But that was definitely the hardest thing that I've ever gone through.
Yeah, the places where you got the most comfort in, I know you mentioned God's grace and friends and their patience. What were some of the best ways that your friends were able to be there for you versus some of the ways that maybe made you want to be more recluse?
You know, I think the things that meant the most to me were the friends that were just there, that didn't have any expectations from me and that didn't need anything from me. And that at the end of the day, just loved me for me and wanted to see me grow. They wanted to see me heal and didn't need anything in return. They weren't there because they felt bad for me. They weren't there because they felt like I needed them. Like they were there just because they genuinely cared about just like my mental and emotional state and wanted to support me and love on me and encourage me. And there's such a freedom that comes from that. And I on a somewhat regular basis, still reach out to some of those people that were that source for me during those times and just let them know how much I appreciated it and how much it meant to me, because you can't really put a price tag on that. So I think just being there, comforting me, being a friend to me with zero expectation or need of something in return just went so far for me at that point in my life.
Yeah. Was there ever anything as far as like, so I'm going to like just list out some random things, right? Let's say, for example, bringing you a drink you like. Just do like thumbs up or thumbs down. Bring you a drink you like.
Thumbs up.
Let's see. Sing a song with you, or push you to sing a song.
No. Music is such a vulnerable thing for me that I don't like when people force me to sing when I don't want to.
Fair. Let's see. Come in and talk to you about the news or the weather or just events going on.
It depends on the motive behind it. If the motive behind it is just superficiality and shallow conversation, then no, I would rather not. I like having deep, meaningful conversation.
Okay. So if it starts off with that and then they transition it, so man, tell me about how you're doing, how you're really feeling in here. That was more.
That would be better, yeah.
Got you. Came in to show you a new picture of them traveling.
Yeah, but it would also make me jealous that I didn't get to go. But yeah, no, I do enjoy seeing people's vacations and where they're traveling, what they've experienced. Like I know for my brother, he travels a good bit. The past couple of months, he's been in Colorado, he's been to Guatemala, he's been to Canada. And some of the sights and some of the pictures he shows me, it's just like, man, I'm happy for you that you were able to experience that. Happy for you that, you know, the perspective that you're able to gain as a result of a trip like that. And I think it definitely makes me happy.
Awesome. Going into people that are looking to connect with others, whether it is a new person coming into a new church, kid coming into a school, or a man going into a networking event, what are some ways that a person can enter into a conversation in a more genuine way that elicits more emotion and more thought than the standard cookie cutter responses that a lot of people give.
Yeah, anybody watching this who knows me is going to be like, I bet I know exactly what he's going to say word for word. I'm just a big fan of asking quality questions, which is going to result in more quality answers, quality conversations, which is going to result in quality relationships, which results in quality culture. So, and which results in your ability to develop quality community. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to going to an event or meeting somebody new in the grocery line at the store, like this could apply to anything. That's why I love it so much. Is number one, first and foremost, taking the focus off of you, right? Everybody's favorite radio station is WIFM, which is What's in It for Me. So learn to ask sincere questions, but sincere questions about them. Where, hey man, like tell me about you, right? Tell me about something that's been exciting in your week. Tell me about something that's been challenging about your week. And just learning to ask questions that are out of the ordinary, that are begging for original, genuine responses, as opposed to the questions that many people ask of, hey, my name's Caleb, what do you do? Hey, what do you do? What do I do? Like how much more pathetic of a question can you think up? Like you couldn't think of anything more creative than what do you do?
That's the one that just gets the
wah.
Yeah.
Yes, it needs to just linger on that for 2 minutes. No, but the reality is if you're asking a scripted question like that, you're asking for a scripted answer. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't want a scripted answer. I want the answer that's true and genuine to you.
Right.
If I ask you, a question about your life and your family, I don't want you to be like, oh yeah, I grew up in Florida. I have a couple siblings. What about you? That's like the most shallow answer in the world. I want to dive into it. If I'm asking you a genuine question, it's because I want a genuine response. And that's something that you can offer in return when people ask you questions. You can make a personal commitment to yourself and to that person to give genuine responses. And sometimes you could even say, especially if you're in a one-to-one conversation with somebody, you could say, hey, like, before we get started, would it be okay with you? Like, could we just agree with one another that we be genuine in the questions that we ask and genuine in our responses with one another? My friend Jamie Miller taught me that, and I absolutely love that approach. And when it comes to networking, I mean, some of the common questions that I give people to ask instead of what do you do is, hey, like, how'd you hear about this event? Because then they might have heard about it from Eventbrite. They might have heard about it from Facebook. They might have been invited by a friend. They might have whatever. And then that might transition to them being new in town or them coming out to support a friend. Oh, no kidding. Who's your friend? Like, who invited you out? Oh, like, tell me about them. Like, what's your relationship? How'd you guys meet? Oh, and then the sky's the limit. The conversation can go in a million different directions. As opposed to what do you do is just a scripted answer and then it ends and then you don't know what to do from there. You're like, okay, what if what they do has no value at all, no merit at all to what you're looking for? Then what? You just walk away.
Right.
So that's why it's like, no, learn to get to know them as a person and then determine if that connection is for you or maybe that connection is not for you. Maybe it's for somebody else. And you get to be the conduit for that connection for somebody else, right? And then a couple of other questions could be like, hey, tell me, how'd you hear about the event? And then what are you looking to get out of this event tonight? Or hey, like what brings you out to this event tonight? And then you're asking them a question that is gonna result in some sort of personal answer to them of how they heard about it, how they got there, why they're there. And then you can go into another conversation. From most likely those questions are going to result in them telling you a little bit about what they do anyway. But if it doesn't, then you could end by saying, hey, like, tell me who are you looking to connect with at an event like this? Or what are you looking to get out of this event tonight? Like, imagine that. What a better question than what do you do? Say, hey man, so good to meet you. My name's Caleb. Hey, tell me, like, what are you looking to get out of this event tonight? They're going to tell you, and then they're going to ask, that's funny. That's a good question, Caleb. Like, what are you looking to get out of this? And then I say, so glad you asked. Thank you for asking that to me. And then I get to give a very genuine response to them about why I'm there and what I'm looking to get out of the event. So you just begin to see the quality like instantly goes up when you're more intentional and sincere with the questions that you ask.
That's it makes me think of, I've ran into someone that I met at a previous Citrus Orlandopreneur event. And when I saw him here, I'm like, oh, you showed up to another one of these. And when I told this to Juan, the guy was someone, he's a school teacher. So I'm like, you're a school teacher. What are you doing here? Like, aren't you busy like with papers and all these things? How do you have time for this kind of thing here? And he's like, yeah, man, but you know, I'm a single man and I just like to come out and I just like to be around people that have good energy and that are excited and that are forward thinking about things. I don't have a business right now, but I like to just see what the energy and the buzz is and see like, hey, maybe in the future I'll want to do something. And I just thought to myself, now that's so different. But it was from a question of like, what are you doing here as a teacher? You know, whereas if it's just like coming up being like, hey, good to see you again, man. How are you? That would have been like, oh, you know, hanging out. I'm tired from work.
I'm busy. That's another answer that
Right.
I haven't completely unlocked the keys to the kingdom with that response, but I try my darndest not to just say, I'm busy. It's like, okay, what's new? So isn't everybody else. That's a horrible answer to answer somebody when they ask how you're doing, that you're busy. It's like, okay, thank you. That gave me so much insight into your life right now. I appreciate that.
So this is something that I've seen happen. And sometimes I know I get caught off guard by it. And I'm so curious for you because you meet such a high volume of people. You must run into it all the time and you have to fight the little ticks in your head going off. As someone that has learned how to sort of increase the quality of the conversations that you have, how do you handle it when you meet someone who is clearly like they're either showing up with no understanding of like how to have a more valuable conversation?
Okay. Yeah. I do see that quite a bit, which is one of the reasons why I do the workshops that I do, is because I see a lot of people struggling with the same things. And I know that it's not a result of their intelligence. It's just a result of ignorance and lack of training and lack of attention to the skill sets. So I haven't done this too often, but I've begun to do it more, where if somebody is being pitchy to me or they're
okay, this one's going to be a personal good one to me because
okay.
I feel like I get it so much and I just want to be like, you seem cool, but maybe you don't try to sell me for the first 4 minutes of us talking.
Yeah, sometimes I'll address it and I'll just say, hey, listen, like you don't have to sell me. You don't have to try to sell me anything. Like, I'd love to just have a genuine conversation with you if that's okay with you. Or, hey, like, is it okay with you if we just spend a few minutes getting to know each other? Something along those lines. Otherwise, if I genuinely sense that it's a closed door or that there's nothing there, then I'll just respectfully, say, hey, like, I'll let you get a chance to go out and meet some other people. We'll connect later, or I'll circle back with you. Hey, what's the best way to connect with you? And I'll just find closure there instead of just going on and on and on in circles. And usually what I've found, the people that go into networking events that are just there to pitch people, which in case you didn't know is called pitch slapping. It's really something you should avoid doing. If you're one of those people, I've found that you move on relatively quickly anyway when you find that I'm not that person and that I'm not buying what you're selling.
Yep.
That I want to have genuine conversations, that you move on very quickly. It's just like, here's my card, and they might have a good system as far as staying connected with me, but it's so quick and it's so shallow that there was no time for us to develop common ground to where if they asked me for an appointment or asked me for a meeting, I would be like, for what? Like, you already gave me your pitch. What do we need to meet for? You already told me everything you do. So why are we going to meet? So that's something that I would say as a caution to people is beware of the pitch slap. Don't be that person.
I love it. I love it. I've never heard that term pitch slap before. Where'd you get it from?
I forget where I heard that from, but I heard it and I said to myself that sums it all up.
So accurate.
It's pitch slapping. Don't do that. Don't pitch slap me. I want to talk with you. I want to get to know you as a person. I don't want to hear your pitch. You can share that with me later.
Oh man, I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh, Caleb, describe for us your 10 out of 10 woman.
Whoa. we just went a whole different direction all of a sudden. We were talking about pitch slaps and deep conversations into 10 out of 10 women. Are you serious?
Yeah, man. Okay. I know I got to keep you off your game a little bit.
Well, this isn't going to come as a surprise to anybody listening to this. And thank you, by the way, if you have been tuning in, or if you're tuning in later and are still listening up until this point and finding this conversation to be valuable, thank you for being here. But sincerity and authenticity is something that is so extremely important to me, and therefore won't surprise you to know that as an attractive character quality of a woman, because I value that so much. So when I see a woman who is conducting herself in a way that's authentic and real and true, that is, first of all, very rare nowadays. So it automatically stands out because it's just rare. But it's also something that is so beautiful, just to be perfectly honest with you. Second of all, I would say compassion and tenderness is a big thing to me, something that stands out in the nature and character of a woman that is compassionate and kind and caring and sympathetic. And I think, and as an extension of that, is forgiving, like a woman who's very, very forgiving in nature. And I think part of the reason why that means so much to me is because of the unforgiving nature of my home environment growing up, that this mentality of being quick to forgive and being quick to listen and being sincere, being honest, being compassionate is something that I didn't always experience in the home between my parents, and therefore it is seen as very, very important to me now. But other than that, just some like fun things, I would say sense of humor is huge. If you know me well and you've spent time around me, you know that I love to laugh. I love being goofy. I love humor. I love comedy. And some people are probably like, really? You do? You're always so serious. But I do. I love comedy. I love to laugh. I love to just be stupid and have a good time. I love to talk in crazy voices. And so a sense of humor is definitely an attractive character quality of a woman, as well as adventurous spirit. Like, I love to camp. I love to get really close to wild grizzly bears. I like to hike. I like to, go out on the ocean. I like to do crazy things. So if you're going to be with me, you've got to have a little bit of an adventurous edge, right? I love bikes and snowboarding and all these, and which some of those things I don't do anymore because of physical limitations that I have. But point being, adventurous, athletic definitely is a perk. I wouldn't say it's mandatory, but it's definitely a perk just because of my lifestyle.
So you are so active and involved in so many different places, networking events, church. I know you know exactly where it's going. How is it that you have not been snatched off the market?
I'm just going to answer that with what I believe to be the God honest truth. And that's that God is still working on me and preparing me to be everything that I need to be as a leader, as an example, as a husband, and as a future father as well. And on the flip side of that for that special someone, that he is still preparing her as well. And I know that might seem odd or might seem strange or weird or whatever it might come across as. And frankly, I don't care, just because that's my reality. I also think because of some of the relationships that I have had over the years that didn't pan out, I definitely have. I mean, I've got to be honest. I've had a little bit of hesitancy to go out and put myself out there and to, to try and build a meaningful relationship because of some of the relationships that I've had that didn't work out. But I think more so the reason lies in the fact that I'm being prepared, both in my character and in spirit, to be in the position to where I could be everything that I need to be as a leader, as a father, as a friend, a companion. So
I hear that, man. So would you say that you're in a place right now where you throw out little liners and testers, or is it just like if it comes, it comes type of deal?
Definitely, if it comes, it comes. I'm not a big flirtatious kind of guy. People who know me know that I don't put myself out there a lot. I'm very reserved. I'm very mindful not to touch women in these different business events that I'm in. Right, like I'm pretty cautious and guarded with that, as I believe I need to be, because you just got to be careful nowadays in the world that we live in, and also because of emotion. Emotion is a very, very real thing, and I know that you're not going to somehow evoke some sort of crazy emotions just with a hug or a touch on the shoulder, but it's also something that it's a line that I'd rather not flirt with, and I'd rather maintain and preserve my reputation and my dignity and my honor, to know that, hey, like this is just the line. Like this is not an area of compromise for me. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think it talks about in 1 Timothy how you want to be a man that is beyond reproach. Essentially, when you're a man that holds a lot of reputation, a lot of status, people know you just from hearing your name. Like, it's something to be very cognizant of, even more so than as a typical person, but for someone in your capacity and whatnot.
Yeah, more often than not, people treat it like a game today in society, and I think that's extremely unfortunate, because it takes away from the beauty that lies within relationships between men and women. It takes away from the beauty of a marriage relationship, a covenant relationship between a man and a woman. So,
would you ever give dating apps a try?
I actually have. It was very brief, but I'm not a huge fan of them, and the main reason why is because it feels very transactional to me. Again, probably doesn't come as a surprise to you, but it feels very transactional to just look through pictures and first glance, first impression, decide whether or not I'm going to keep talking to them based on how they look and how they appear, which you and I both know that they can make themselves appear however they want to make themselves appear.
Oh, yeah, catfishing so real.
Right. Not even just with the pictures, though, even with your answers to these questions. You can write whatever you want. Doesn't mean that it's actually true of your life. So I have a very hard time with the technological version of dating.
Have you ever gone and done filter by faith?
I have. I haven't even touched an app in a while. So I maybe there are other ones that have better systems, but it's just something
there's some game I got to put you on to, man. I'm telling you.
All right.
Yeah.
Monte's about to put me onto a game.
I'm just saying, I know about 3 different couples, not including myself, that all got married through filtering by Christian on dating apps. So
you met your wife on a dating app?
I met my wife on Bumble.
Oh my goodness. Unbelievable. Got me there.
And we have a neighbor. She is getting married soon. She literally just moved across the street behind the marathon, met her husband on Bumble as well.
Okay.
It's a thing, man.
Maybe that'll be an off-record conversation.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Go to the Patreon for that. No, I'm just... All right. Let me make sure that what we're looking like on time here. What's that, about 3:50? What do you have, Caleb?
It's 3:50. Yes,
3:50? All right. So I know we have our out time of 4:30, so I want to be respectful of your time. So... Yes. I will go ahead and transition to some of the closing segments here.
Awesome.
So we've hopped all over the place. I've given you whiplash from the directions we've gone here. You've unpacked a lot of different facets and elements here. what are 3 things from everything discussed, or maybe something even recently that you've learned that you want the audience to be able to take away, think about, meditate on, pray about, and implement?
3 things that I want to leave the audience with. I mean, I've gotta go with what comes in my mind first, and that's just being sincere and genuine with the questions that you ask. But because I already talked about it and I beat that to death before, I'm gonna say this from a different angle, give you a different version of the questions that you ask, not only with the people that you talk to, but with the questions that you ask yourself. So the more that you can learn to ask deeper, more vulnerable, more authentic questions to yourself, you will find yourself in a whole new headspace, and most likely in a whole new heart space as well, because you're opening yourself up to having a better understanding of who you are as a person, why you think the way that you do, why you believe the way that you do, why you want the things that you want in life. And that is something that I want the audience to take away. Not just learning to ask better questions to the people that are across from you, but also learning to ask better questions to yourself.
And normally I don't interrupt the audience with this, or the guest with this, but I'm very curious. What are 3 or so, some of your favorite questions that you've begun to ask yourself?
These are probably going to sound very vague, but I'd be willing to bet these are things that you have already thought of in your head, but you've just never actually taken time to answer it. And that's why I say asking yourself these questions, but also answering the questions. Questions like, who am I? Why do I do the things that I do? And what do I want? Like, what do I really, really want? And being able to dive deep into those questions of who am I, right? Like, imagine, some of you have heard me say this. Imagine that there's no more masks to wear. There's no more shadows to live in. There's no more hidden expectations from pastors, professors, peers, parents, politicians. There's no more of that. You take it all away. Who are you? You have to learn the answer to that question. And it's something that you ought to ask yourself on a regular basis to make sure that you are staying in alignment with who you are, with the decisions that you're making. The things that you're saying yes to and the things that you're saying no to ought to be in alignment with who it is that you are. And to take that a step further is, what do you want? Okay, well, don't you think that would make it a lot easier to prioritize and to set boundaries and to manage your time if you had a crystal clear vision of who you are and what you want? Yes, because then you can say no to certain things that are not in alignment with who you are and what you want. And you can say yes to the things that are in alignment with who you are and what you want, right? So that's I could talk about that for a long time, but we'll stop it there. But I hope that serves as an encouragement for anybody out there listening to this, that a lot of people don't know the answer to that question, not because for no other reason than they've never slowed down long enough to think about it. That's literally it. So that's the answer to that for the first thing.
Those 5 P's that you came up with, I mean, you just had them ready. These are pieces that you've thought about. And
yes.
And I like it because having those types of things, it makes it easier to kind of have concepts in your head and be able to bring them back. Go ahead, continue. I was going to get into a thing, but
no. So that's the first thing: asking and answering sincere questions of yourself. I would also say that, and this is something that may sound vague just because it's something that you hear from a lot of the self-help books, the leadership books, the influencers, but I cannot even begin to emphasize on how important this is constantly seeking growth and excellence. What do I mean by that? When you commit yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, excellent in the way that you live, with the words that you use, with the thoughts that you think, life begins to look different. your relationships begin to look different. Why? Because you're not settling for less than. You are setting high expectations of yourself, and in a perfectly healthy, loving way, you're setting high expectations for the people around you. What do I mean by that? Well, for me, the times when I'm growing the most are the times when I'm around people that don't allow me to settle, first of all, but people who have high expectations and high standards for themselves. So for me, I am constantly asking myself, how can I improve the way that I communicate with people? Not just with the words that I use, the tonality that I have, the pauses in my speech that I have, the way that I might incorporate a touch on the shoulder for further emphasis on what it is that I'm saying, to make sure that my eye contact is there, to make sure that if I'm shaking somebody's hand while I'm talking with them, that I'm repeating their name back to them, ensuring that I'm saying their name the right way, that I'm pronouncing it right. And I cannot even begin to tell you how far that goes. Committing yourself to a lifestyle of excellence in word and behavior and action and in speech, in behaviors, and you'll notice that your relationships in your own personal life begin to change and begin to elevate when you think about it that way. So that's the second thing.
Love it.
The third thing, I have to think of three. Okay. Takeaway from this. The third takeaway that I want you to leave with, I would say to make sure that you give yourself grace and patience on your journey, okay? Because I talk a lot about my journey, the ups, the downs, the high moments, the low moments, the times when I felt like giving up, and the times when I felt like I was on top of the world and could accomplish anything. Life is a journey, folks. If I've learned nothing else in life, I've learned that life is hard. Life is unfair. Life throws curveballs at you. Life throws disappointments at you. People let you down. People say they're going to do something and they won't do it. And you have to be patient with yourself in that journey. And something that I'm currently learning is learning to be patient with others' journeys as well. Because if I'm saying that I am being patient with myself, wouldn't it be only then fair to be patient with those that are around me and their respective journeys and wherever they might be on their journey? We're all in different places, and that's the beauty of life. That's the beauty of community and of relationship, is that we're all at different places in the journey. We can all learn with and from one another, which is an incredible thing. But learning to slow down and not only be patient with your journey and to give yourself grace, but learning to appreciate your journey, because you know the journey that you're on, the trials you face, the disappointments that you may face, the letdowns, the failures, they're all shaping you and forming you into the person that you are right now. And I would just encourage you, lastly, is to focus more on who you are becoming instead of being so caught up in who you've been, and even in getting caught up in who you are right now. Like, remember who it is that you're becoming in time. And that takes some of the pressure off of who you've been in the past, because you realize it's in the past. You can't change who you've been in the past. You can't change decisions that you made in the past. Heck, you can't even change exactly what's happening right in this exact moment or what happened earlier today. But you can focus on who you are becoming through the decisions that you make, through the people that you surround yourself with, and through the things that you tell yourself, which is your thoughts and your mindset, the mindset that you have.
Love
so
it,
I'll
man.
end with that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Mr. Paull.
Welcome.
The next portion of the closing segments, what are 3 of any questions whatsoever that you have? You may ask of me, and I will answer them completely honestly.
Oh, me asking questions? That's a unique one for a podcast. Questions to ask you. I already asked you a couple of questions earlier before we started.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's one. This is a question that I like asking to people, and because we haven't had too many deep conversations yet, I'd love to know what is something that was particularly challenging for you in your journey in contributing to who you are today as a person, now as a husband, and as a leader, as a friend. What is something that was challenging in your life that you feel like made a big impact in the person that you are today?
I would say something that is directly that was challenging, that contributed to now, as far as the man I am of faith, the person who knows how important it is to have community, to be pouring into the next generation, to understand how good solid peership is to have. I would say it was the breakup of a 5+ year relationship that ended almost solely due to my inability to pull the trigger, my desire for perfectionism, and wanting things to be in a certain place in a certain way, and my lack of a moral compass that was grounded in something bigger than culture. It was when that breakup happened, it forced me to look at a lot of the new age ideals that I had and to say to myself, you've tried all of this your life. You said you wanted to paint your own picture. You wanted to row your own boat, and a tsunami came, and you didn't have an anchor down when the tsunami came. And so clearly you don't have the gumption to be able to forge your own path based off of these constantly shifting tides and winds that are blowing you about. And you're getting tossed and turned based off of whatever is acceptable right now. You need to put roots down in something solid. And that breakup definitely helped me to realize that.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that with me. I appreciate it. We're getting all vulnerable here. I really appreciate that. My second question is, if you could go back in time, could be when you were 7, it could be when you were 17, and you could change one thing. It could be one decision you made. It could be one word that you said to somebody that you wish you didn't say. One thing. It could be something really, really small or something large. One thing, if you had the ability to go back in time and to erase one choice, one word, one decision, what would it have been? Just making sure of the question, if you could erase any one thing that you communicated to someone, what would it be? Yeah, or a decision that you made that you wish you didn't make.
I would say, man, that's a tough one there. There's a conversation that I had with someone where I told them that I was so bored being around them and I hated it. And this was a person I spent time with on a very regular basis. And I know that just absolutely, the relationship absolutely was never the same after that. And I look at that now and I know the place that I was in, the place that person was in, but man, I think about it and to this day, it certainly keeps me anytime I start to get a type of anger towards my wife, I'm careful here. You're treading on very close waters to that land again. Yeah, that's my huge red flag in the sand. Devontae, pull back, man.
Okay. Thank you, man. I appreciate these honest, transparent answers. My third question will be just as deep, but a little bit different of a flavor.
Okay.
Who is the one individual that has had the biggest influence in your life, and in what ways? What characteristics or things stand out the most to you about why this individual may have had such a big influence on you? So who was that one individual that has had the biggest influence on you, and what was it about them that influenced you so much?
Oh, man. So that's a really tough one because
And you can't say Jesus Christ.
that's literally what I was about to. Where is it?
You can if you want to.
Okay, so obviously it would be Jesus at this point. But I guess if we're gonna look at the person that really pointed me that, well, that's tough too because there's been different people at stages. I would probably have to say something around the compass of like either my uncle that has lived with me in various stages, did sports with me. He was even into the Bible more than me before I was. And I mean, he's just someone that I talk to about relationship stuff, business stuff. So probably that would be that's had the most like impact on it. And even that's a little finicky because there are some things where I'm like, oh, can't talk to him about this thing. Can't talk about. So it's a tough one, you know?
All right. I stumped him, guys. Sorry. I should have let him answer Jesus Christ. Well, I appreciate you sharing your answers to those tough questions.
Man, those were some great questions. Thank you for those.
Of course. And you didn't have any preparation for them, so it made it even harder.
Yeah, right? Did I overshare, guys? Let me know. But this brings us to our last segment here, man. So finally, what is one thing that you would like to either confess here, something that you have been struggling with, or something you want to give a praise about? But what is one thing that I and the audience can come around you in prayer about?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to have to go with something that is most applicable to my life right now. Some may understand this, some may not, but in the circles that I'm in the lifestyle that I lead, which is very busy, very involved with a lot of different things, I would say this is a prayer, but it's also an area of challenge for me is just wisdom and discernment on how to handle different things that come my way on a day-to-day basis. How to handle certain conversations with people. Like there's certain positions of leadership that I'm in over certain groups. Obviously, as a volleyball coach, I'm in a position of leadership, and I have to address parents with certain things, and I have to address and communicate different things to the kids. And in business circles, I have my own business, so of course there's a leadership element of that. I don't own the company that I work for with my full-time job, but I'm in a position of leadership there. Like I'm department head, and I lead a certain aspect of the business. It falls on me, and so there are certain decisions that I have to make, choices of how I spend my time. Again, where I go, which events I go to, how to deal with challenging people, challenging relationships, challenging situations. That's just the reality of life. There are conversations that I either get myself into or conversations that have to happen with people that are challenging for me to know how to navigate that sometimes. Because as a leader, especially for me as a Christian, I desire my relationships to be honoring and glorifying to the Lord. And so I want to conduct myself in a way that's patient and loving and listening well and being attentive to the emotional and spiritual needs of the person who I may be confronting or talking to. But outside of that, is just certain business situations that I get myself into that I need wisdom and discernment and grace and knowing exactly how to deal with it in a way that is uncompromising to my personal faith, but that is also following through with commitments that I have or certain responsibilities that I have to my job or to the people in my circle. So I don't know if that makes sense or not, but it's something that I've been struggling with a little bit. It's just that discernment piece of knowing, even like knowing who's really in my corner and who's not. Like, I interact with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people on a regular basis. And sometimes it's hard to know, like, who's actually in my corner, who is actually on my side, who actually wants me to win, and who is holding me back and keeping me back and wants to see me fall. Because there are certainly those people. Don't let anybody believe you, trick you into believing that everybody has your best interest in mind, because they don't. I've learned that the hard way. We won't talk about that too much, but it's been a reality for me in Orlando, that there are things that have happened and instances that have happened that are very unfortunate. That it's like, dang, like, people are hurting, man. People do things out of their own traumas and emotional needs, and that's where, for me, it comes in as a believer that I desire to respond in a way that's loving and respectful. Not always easy to do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Was that too deep?
No, not at all. I got you 100%. Thank you for trusting me with that prayer, though. All right, so at this time, audience, please come around me and join in prayer for Caleb. Dear Lord and Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time that we've had where we've been able to come together as brothers in business, brothers in Christ, and been able to just sit and discuss all these different facets of Caleb's life, his understanding, his wisdom, his experiences, and that he's been willing and able to communicate these things to an audience. Thank you for the blessing that he's poured out today and allowing people just to understand more about him so that they could look at this and potentially be inspired to navigate their lives in certain ways of wisdom. Dear God, we know that you call us to a life of excellence. You call us to a life of obedience. And sometimes in that obedience, we travel and we are uncertain of certain paths to take, certain decisions to make, and certain engagements that we interact with, Lord. And so we just pray with Caleb here now as he continues in being as busy as he is and as interacting with all of the numerous multitudes of people that he interacts with, God, that you would just give him the discernment and the ability to navigate these engagements and to be able to handle them in the most glorifying manner to you as possible, God. We know that sometimes these things take on a life of their own. Emotions get high in different situations, whether it's in business areas or it's with parents or students. And sometimes these things can be very meticulous in how we need to either put our hands to it or put our voice to it or our words to it. And sometimes it feels like it can just be one small step can completely shift the entire trajectory of a relationship or an event. And we just pray that in those times you would give Caleb a spirit of discernment, a spirit of wisdom, and a spirit of peace, most of all, to know that so long as he is moving with you in mind, operating in ways that do truly glorify you, not according to his own thoughts and desires about it, but according to what your word says, that you will ultimately work out that situation, those events, those engagements and discussions to your will for the best of all people involved, God. And so we just pray that he would seek your presence as he operates and moves in those scenarios, because we know, Lord, that you have your hand over every matter. And if we seek you, you will answer. And so we just pray that we can seek you continuously in these situations. We pray for the audience as they have joined, watched along for however long that they did. We pray that this was valuable to them, that they were able to gain something from this, and that this can be something that they even can share with people that might benefit from hearing about how Caleb has navigated these things. We thank you, God, for blessing us, and we pray that you will be with us and protect us through this weekend, giving us rest and giving us replenishment in your spirit. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, brother.
Absolutely, brother.
Appreciate it. And thank you so much for the time, for the opportunity. I mentioned it earlier, but thank you if you've stayed with us throughout this time together. Appreciate that, and would love to hear from you and connect with each of you. Should be pretty easy to find on platforms like LinkedIn, Caleb Paull with 2 L's. And then my Instagram is the1 Caleb Paull. So definitely would love to connect with you all there. Give me a follow. Give me a shout on the DMs, and would love to hear from you at some point.
Absolutely, you guys. And make sure, especially if you're in the Orlando area, come out to any networking event. You're likely to see Caleb at least one of them a week, if not more. So thank you so much for the time. I know that 2.5 hours is a big ask for every guest, so I'm super appreciative for everyone that can do it. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for being willing to talk about some of the pieces that were more vulnerable, more personal in there. Definitely appreciate that.
Of course. Absolutely. Happy to do it, brother.
Awesome, man. Thank you guys for coming in and giving us your time. We pray that y'all have a great weekend. This is our Friday piece. And so you guys be safe, make good decisions. And most of all, thank you so much for joining on this episode of the Inspired Challenge podcast. Now go out and do something great. And YouTube is closed.
All right, man. That was a long loop. How long?